This session is all about creating the sales invoices in electronic invoice format. If you go to VAT modules and click on sales invoice register, you will see all the invoices which is raised in the time period starting from 1st December to 31st December. I have raised 6 invoices in this period, the total turnover of 70,000. If you go down, you can see all the invoices I have raised in this time period, and the last invoices sequence is 318. Now, if you want to change the time period, you can go and change the time period as before. You can go and change, let's say for example, from 1st of November to 31st of November. I have raised 178 invoices. I have a turnover of 6.3 million, and all the invoices are listed out here. This sequence of invoices are listed here, and if I want to create a new invoice, I can go to add new invoice. When I click on add new invoice, there is two types of invoices shows for creation. First one is regular tax invoices, and the second one is simplified tax invoices. Regular tax invoices and simplified tax invoices. What is the difference between these two? Regular tax invoices are those invoices we generate for business to business. One company to another company, they raise an invoice, you use regular tax invoices. Simplified tax invoices are those which you create for business to consumers, B2C transactions. So you can say like shops and coffee shops and supermarkets, all these things who directly deal with the consumers will raise this kind of simplified tax invoices. So I'm going to show you how to create a regular tax invoices at first. When I click on add new, now the invoice is generated with all the information regarding electronic invoice. All the fields are ready and captured and kept it in there. Once I click on this button, it's saved. The invoice is saved and the sequence number is saved, and all the information, the basic information is already filled in there. So I'm going to discuss about what are all the components are there in the electronic invoices. Invoice number, auto generated number, invoice date and time. You can see this invoice date and time, you cannot change it. You cannot create backdated entries and all. So invoices are generated as in the real time. And VAT invoice type, there is three types of VAT invoices are there. Types are there, or tax invoices, credit notes, and debit note. VAT invoice subtypes are classified into two. One is regular tax invoice and simplified tax invoices. And invoice date is in, and supply date. Supply date is the date which you deliver the goods or render the services provided. If you are doing equipment rental or manpower or equipment invoices, or any services you are provided for a periodic time, you can use the last date of service rendered. Let's say November's months of invoice, you can create 30 November as a supply date. And payment means, there are 4 types of payment means are there, like in cash, credit, payment to bank account, and bank card. And if you don't know any transaction is going to, how the money is going to come to you, so you can use instrument not defined. Right now, payment to bank account is normally B2B transactions. Always payment is bank to bank, to their payment is coming to their bank account. And invoice transaction code. For a regular tax invoices, the transaction code is 01000000. If you want other than this transaction, like if you go and check, we have 5 other types of transactions in Saudi Arabia. One is third-party transactions, tax invoices, nominal tax invoices, export tax invoices, and summary tax invoices, and some self-bill tax invoices. I will just explain you what are all these tax invoices methods are. Third-party tax invoices. These are all the invoices which is created by a third party, not by a supplier or not by the buyer. It was created by the third party. If I click on it, automatically the code for this transaction is also changed in there. Second type is nominal tax invoices. These are all tax invoices which is provided without any consideration. The third type is export tax invoices, which is issued to a foreign buyer. And summary tax invoices, these are all sales occurring over a period of time. So there is an arrangement between the buyer and the seller to create summary tax invoices. Self-bill tax invoices are issued by the buyer instead of the supplier. So it is normally happens with the B2B scenarios. So if you click on this is the basic things. In a B2B transaction, you don't need to change any of these things. So we'll concentrate on mainly in the client code or client information. So let's say I have already added all my clients as in my database. So it's coming from the list of all clients I have. Let's say, for example, Saleh Abdullah contracting establishment. When I choose that, automatically all the information about the when I choose that, automatically the client's information is already selected for me, like Saleh Abdullah Contracting Company, their name, English and Arabic, and their client VAT number, other type ID. You have to mention one other type ID to for the buyer. You have to create it like CR number, GLS, GCC ID, or POMRA license, national ID, to name a few. You can see it in the list. So you have to specify the client's ID number, also the reference number of that ID. If it is a CR, it should be CR number. If it is a SAGIA license, it should be the SAGIA license number. Next thing is the client's address details. If you click on it, you can see the client's detailed information of their address, the street name, building number, city, additional number, postal code, their district, country code, etc. in English and Arabic. It's all been specified in the invoices. If you want to create a new client, you can go on, click on this plus button to create this one. If I want to change any of this information and change it in their master, you can go on, click on this pen button. It will show me that the client in creation screen or editing screen. You will see the billing name, VAT number, ID type, etc. So I have chosen already this one, so I'm going to create a new invoice in here. Other than that, we can go to check the invoice start date and end date. Let's say this invoice is generated for the month of November, so I want to specify for the month of November. The invoice due date, effective date, and revenue, all these things can be chosen. Invoice notes also can be written in there, and you can set it as default also. The next thing you can see are about the client's PO number, if you have any PO number to be mentioned, or the project reference number or contract number you can specify. Let's say this is well at the building project or something like that, or any reference things you can specify in there. For trading type of invoices, you have the delivery notes, quotations, payment terms, etc. etc. You can add it in there. And deductions and currencies, like the currency details of this particular invoices. If you want to choose the currency for in various currencies, you can select this one. If you have any advances or retention for this invoices, you can mention it here also. Branch and division, the division of this particular invoice, let's say it belongs to equipment rental division. The salesperson, let's say Mr. Farhan, is responsible for this when we are planning to submit the invoices. As well as your company brand details. You might have different branches. Let's say I have 3 different branches are there. I can choose which branches this belongs to. Let's say this belongs to Alinjas Contracting Company, and our details of VAT and other address details, everything is filled in here. And who is going to approve this and these things, or we will see it after creating the item. Now I'm going to add a new item by clicking on this add new item. A new line item has been selected, and you can come and choose from the list of all the services and the goods we provide. So let's say, for example, all these items and services I'm going to provide. I'm going to take like equipment rental services. I can say equipment rental. So I can choose from the services, and I type it in. It will find out anyway the equipment name is spelled in there. I'm going to say equipment rental services for the backhoe loader 22040. I select this one, I enter. So here we can specify hourly rate, daily rate, weekly rate, monthly rate, anything you want to specify. Let's say this invoice is below, maybe number of hours is 278 hours, and 75 riyal per hour it is being charged. I can come here and click on save or update. You will see the total amount with VAT with 23,000 we have to invoice for. So if you want to change any description of this VAT, you can specify it's 5%, 0% or 0 exports, something like that. So I'm going to leave it as it is, and I'm going to create an additional one more item. Let's say I want to add an additional item. If this item or services is not provided in there, I can go on, click on this plus button. I'm going to add a new item inside there, and I'm going to add a man left and its services or something like that. So when I click on this plus button, I can see the goods and service creation screen, a simple screen where we can select the services or the group of items we are providing. Like I can say rental services. I'm going to say equipment rental services for see man lift 16 meter. The code, any code number you are going to specify. I can translate by clicking on this button. Also, I can choose how the unit of measure or how I'm going to bill for this. So all this information is automatically added, and I'm going to, let's say, add like 180 hours at 35 riyal per hour I charge you. Once I click update, you will see the total amount changes, and on the we have around 31,000 worth of invoices has been raised in here. Now I complete with this entries. I can go on print review the invoices. There is two types of invoices, as I told, the regular tax invoice and simplified tax invoice. I'm going to create a regular tax invoice. When I click on it, the whole tax invoice has information. I'm going to check this one, like this is the invoice number, our details in English, and our details in our company details in Arabic. If you go down, you can see the client details in English and Arabic, and the details of all the invoices has been specified in there as we mentioned in our invoice. The invoice date, supply date, contract numbers, due date, invoice period, reference, etc. These components can be changed, and you can replace it with any other components you needed. If it is a trading invoice, I would like to mention, instead of invoice period, I would like to mention the delivery notes or something like that. Instead of reference number, I would like to mention the payment terms. Instead of PO number, I can mention some other number. You can replace this one as per your requirements. So we can customize that one also. Now when I see this, we have the goods and services what we provided, and we have two items which is having 23,000 plus 7,000 with that. And now this invoice is in draft mode because the invoice is being created and it's not yet approved by my manager. So it's just in the draft copy. Now let's say the total is there, and we have the bank details of our company, which we can specify in the customer's information, prepared by and received by signatures, and the QR code. This is the requirement of Zakka, that you should mention the QR code. And for B2B transaction, QR code is not mandatory, but still if you would like to specify, you can add it. For us, we have already mentioned the QR code. What this QR code will contain inside? This QR code will not contain any text fields or numbers or something like that. It is a TLB base 64 format which will be encoded and will be stored in there. At present, the TLB 64 base format will be having the information encoded in or this name of the client and the VAT number and the date and time stamp of the invoice and tax amount and the total taxable amount. So these are all the information which will be encoded in here. This is as per 4th of December we have to implement in the first phase of this e-invoice implementation. In the second phase of implementation, we will be adding additional fields. 4 more fields will be added in there that will be coming in future versions of the invoices. Now this invoice is ready. I'm going to close this one. I can put a letterhead and print this one, or I can send a sample copy to my manager to review this one, or I can set this option. If I want to print it in a letterhead, I can use print in letterhead. If I want to show signature and show company seal, and I can set my signatures, and I can go on print review the invoice right now. Now the invoice is in my letterhead with the draft copy, signatures, everything comes in there. I can export it to a PDF file, or I can export it, directly mail it to my manager, and then I can specify this one. I have verified these invoices. Now the status of this invoice changed to verified, and we can set a notification to your manager that I have verified this and prepared these invoices and verified it already. So he can go and review this invoice, have a look at all these things, and he can set it up approved. Once he set up approved, this invoice is now locked for editing. You should not edit any of this invoice components in there. So all the invoices are locked, and the lock, once it's finished, you can go on print preview. You can see the draft copy is removed from there. So the approved copy only will have the draft copy removed. So you should approve the invoice before you post into there. So now I can go and post this one to the book of accounts, which will affect our ledgers. So I can finish off this invoice right now by clicking on posting to ledger. That's it.